we saw the match, the strap match on Saturday between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. CM Punk gets the win. Michael Cole, first televised win for CM Punk in the WWE in 10 and a half years. Pretty significant victory for CM Punk on Saturday. And hey, Punk got the win and in a brutal fashion in that strap match. So now we're thinking it's all over. And then all the speculation, everybody on the internet, everybody's talking, even here on Busted Open over the weekend. What's next for CM Punk? Well, everybody thinks, hey, CM Punk going after that World Heavyweight Championship and going after Gunther. And that was the scuttlebutt. And then what do you know? CM Punk goes into the ring last night and talks about, hey, I want to go after that World Heavyweight Championship, which was always the goal for CM Punk going back before WrestleMania 40. And then just like that, at the turn and the drop of a dime, you get that Claymore from Drew McIntyre that knocked Punk's shoe off. The Claymore, you had to think about it. It knocked the shoe off of CM Punk, and that wasn't enough. It gets brutal from there. Wade Barrett actually tried to get involved because they talked about the friendship between Wade Barrett and Drew McIntyre, and even Wade Barrett, because Drew was so incensed and so angry, he just gave Wade Barrett the fuck you and continued to beat the shit out of CM Punk. And then what was the story? They used that bracelet as part of that story, how, CM Punk was able to get that bracelet back from Drew McIntyre with AJ's name on it and Larry's name on it, and then Drew destroys it and then shoves it down the throat of CM Punk. Now, how could it get more brutal than a strap match? I think we saw that last night on Monday Night Raw. Bully, what say you, my friend?
I loved what I saw last night on so many levels. First things first, I think it was one of your genius co-hosts that suggested a couple of weeks ago that Drew McIntyre should destroy the bracelet of CM Punk. Whoever that co-host was, you should give him a gold star and a smack on the ass. Because whoever that guy is, they listened to him. I love the destroying of the bracelet because what the bracelet means to CM Punk. It doesn't have to be a gold bar. It doesn't have to be $1 million. It doesn't have to be a World Heavyweight Championship. It is a 50-cent bracelet. And breaking that bracelet breaks CM Punk's heart. Shoving it down his throat is like ramming it up his backside. Great stuff. Dave, you've heard me talk about the past about unlikely heroes. When I'm seeing a babyface, a beloved babyface get beat up, and nobody comes to save him, that tells me that nobody loves him. Now, when I talk about nobody come to save them, I'm talking about fellow wrestlers. But sometimes I talk about the men at the announce table. Like, how come, if I would have ever seen Michael Cole, and I've given examples about this in the past, if I ever saw Michael Cole jump up and cover somebody because as a human being, you just can't stand to see this other person get beat up anymore and you put yourself in harm's way. I love that we saw that from Wade Barrett last night. Yes, Wade Barrett is a former wrestler who could probably get in the ring if he had to again, but now his responsibilities are at the announce table. And he has a friendship with Drew. It is a natural fit. A former pro wrestler who's as big as Drew McIntyre, who understands what's going on in Drew's mind at that very moment, understands the beating that he's giving CM Punk. Wade Barrett understands how important Punk is to the WWE right now, tries to get involved and calm Drew McIntyre down, and not even he can do it, which lends credibility to how much Drew has really flipped out, because if his bud, his fellow countrymen, can't stop him, who's going to be able to stop him? And I love that nobody's able to stop him. Everybody thought this was over. I loved the swerve. Dave, when I called you at 8 o'clock last night to talk about the new announcer, Joe Tessitore, you also said, hey, Bubba, this is an important show because I think Punk is going to start going after Gunther. They had the hook in your mouth as they had the hook in just about everybody's mouth. And right at the end, Punk starts to go hard on Gunther. Gunther, I'm coming for you. I'm going to take your championship. You better be ready. And then bang, out of nowhere.
Yep.
There's Drew. Holy shit. So, like I said, so many levels. And once I saw this, and I'm just going to throw this question out to you guys, because I threw it out to the nation last night and got bombarded on social media. Now that we've seen last night, we saw what Drew did to Punk. What type of match would you guys like to see Punk and Drew involved in next? I got over 1,000 comments on the old Twitter machine. 1,100 comments on this and what people thought. But I'd love to know what you guys think after we hear from Nick and his breakdown of the segment.
Yeah. And really quick, before we get to that, Bully, because I do want to get to that question. I want the nation to get involved in that question. So get your phone calls in now, 877-344-4893, 877-FIGHT-93. I want to throw to you, Nick, not only about what you thought of the segment last night, but I just love, you just said earlier about Joe Tessitore, where Joe Tessitore is like, I'm not going to pretend that's not Drew McIntyre. The guy's 4 feet in front of me. Of course it's Drew McIntyre. It's not some random fan. I love this structure, too. It's like we're usually used to, all right, that was the blow-off match. Now we move on. Now Punk goes in one direction and Drew McIntyre goes into another direction. Why? After what we saw on Saturday, Drew McIntyre should be more pissed off than ever before after what we saw on Saturday. Logically, and again, that word logic, and a lot of times we don't use that word when it comes to pro wrestling. Logically, what we saw last night makes absolute sense.
Absolutely. And in our world, forever it didn't, which makes it even funnier.
Yes.
Any other time in the wrestling business a few years ago, we don't have Punk come out. We have Drew come out and go, this ain't over, brother. You got me once. I got you. And then you go, okay, they're going to a third match. It'll be a gimmick match. It'll be cool, blah, 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 blah. That sounds great. We're so used to that. It's burned into our brain. Instead, you have people like Dave who pay attention to the vibe online or what the rumors are. And it says, oh, he's going for the world title. He comes out and cuts a promo on the world title. That is just that step so far. It's not a swerve. It's just going about the exact same story they were going to go to a third match, to a big payoff, but we do it in a beautiful way that gets people just a little bit more lured in to going, okay, that's what I want. I want to see Punk as champion. I want to see him as world. Oh, okay, that's the rumors that everyone's talking about. This is perfect. And then you do, like Bubba said, just out of nowhere, boom, we're right back to Drew. So we almost legitimately did a reversal of how they would normally go to it. And just that alone stood out. I go, man, I love that we know it's Drew McIntyre who's 5 feet in front of us, even though he's wearing a hoodie. We know that we're not going to get the exact same way we've always gone about going to a third match, going to the rubber match, going to the gimmick match and paying it off. We just got a little step here and there. And every step of the way you do that, that's something that happens in my head when I'm thinking a lot when you're going to do a superplex off the top rope. I love when you don't just put somebody on the top rope and you hit a superplex. You have someone go up to the top rope and you stop them and you fight them. And sometimes they push you back down and you get back up and then you get them halfway in the air and then they stop you again and they turn it around and they're going to powerbomb you. And you turn, there are so many ways to get to just where you're going, but the story is so much more meaningful when there's other twists and turns and they make sense. And I love the way they absolutely did that. And I won't go first on what the third match should be because I got some ideas, but I'm very curious to see what you guys say also.
Yeah, and Nick, and we're going to get to that, but Bully, what do you always say here on the show? You preach shock and surprise. You know, a lot of times Monday Night Raw was the opposite of shock and surprise. It was cookie cutter to the point where you knew exactly when they were going to go to break. You knew exactly how they were going to start a show, and you knew exactly how they were going to end the show. Here we are. We're so programmed that this is what's going to happen. This story is over, so now let's start a new story, and you kind of forget everything that just happened 2 or 3 days ago. But that's not the way life is. That's not the way it should work. But still, we were so programmed by what we've seen the last, 5 to 10 years, Bully, that Drew McIntyre actually shocked and surprised us, and it shouldn't have. This is something, there's so much anger and animosity here, but because we're programmed a certain way, we were actually surprised by what we saw last night.
Just to follow up on what you said about the word programmed, I don't mean to bring this into the conversation, but it goes back to the conversation that we have with AEW sometimes about how AEW is trying to tell better stories, but they programmed us to watch their show a certain way. The WWE also programmed us to watch a certain way, a very cookie cutter way. Now we get things like we've gotten last night, and we love it. As a huge fan of rock and roll, that first note of that first chord of that first song means something to me. That's what's going to shock and awe me. That's what's going to grab me by the throat and let me know you're about to see something right now. You're about to hear something. And when Drew hit Punk last night, bang! That was that shock and awe. That was that grabbing by the throat. And it continued. And it continued on the gurney, the blood in the mouth, everything that did, every little piece. I've seen a lot from Drew McIntyre and CM Punk already. And with the way wrestling fans' attention spans are these days, it would be very easy for fans to be like, ugh, we're getting more? And I'm like, yeah, we're getting more. After last night, I'm so ready to see the next chapter in Punk and Drew. Just by what they did last night. I don't even care. I don't even remember what the finishes are of the other matches. It doesn't really matter because all I remember is what happened last night. And last night they reset the whole story.
And the way they told the story in the strap match, immediately Drew McIntyre let you know that he didn't give a shit if he won that match or not. He didn't care. It was about beating the shit out of CM Punk. Well, if that's the message he's telling you at the beginning of the match on Saturday, why would his attitude change by the time you got to Monday? It's not about wins or losses here. It's about anger and personal animosity. There's no championship title on the line here. It's personal. That's what makes this feud so special, because it is a blood and guts feud between these two.
Speaking about that, I saw one little thing last night. You know, I always talk about the tightening of the screws. This was small, but it would have been a nice little connector. We saw Pierce in the back talking to Kofi, and Pierce was in a really good mood with Kofi, but 15 minutes earlier, the whole Drew and Punk thing had went down. Pierce's demeanor with Kofi should have been a little bit different in that moment. Pierce should have been
scatterbrained, kind of just like, what the fuck just happened here? Yeah.
Correct. And that's what, to me, that's what turns a good show into a great show into a phenomenal show. But those are just the little things that I appreciate so much. Like at the top of the show, when Nick last week talked, in 5 seconds, he talked about, when Josh Alexander's blown up, he looks down, he walks to the left, and I was like, oh, that's the greatest thing I've heard in years. Like, those small things really, really entertain me.
Yeah, and I think, Nick, that this, whatever this match is going to be, and we're going to dive into it, and we're going to get the calls from the nation as well, it makes sense, because I thought the strap match on Saturday was a good match. I actually liked the match that they had at SummerSlam much better, in my opinion. And you know, Punk got busted open just a little bit. And by the way, Michael Cole, maybe take a note from your former partner at the desk, and it's not busted up, it's busted open. Who fuck says busted up? CM Punk is busted up. No, he's busted open. Don't be afraid to say it. Vince isn't going to yell at you. It's a different era now.
He didn't want to infringe on your trademark. Maybe he didn't want to.
Pat McAfee would put us over to the moon. He had no problem saying busted open. And then as soon as McAfee is gone, he says, busted up, please.
Busted.
Please.
That's like when he turned around my Bojangles cup at announce.
Yeah,
all the Bojangles cups are lined up except the Dudleys were turned around.
You know what? And I don't mean to pick up on these things, but that's why I love the Busted Open Nation, because I go on our Facebook page, which is the most toxic place on the face of the Facebook. I go on our Facebook page, and they're like, Michael Cole hates Busted Open. Reason number one, he's got the Bojangles cup and he turns Bully so that the camera's not on Bully. That's evidence piece number one. And then he says busted up instead of who says busted up? Nobody says busted up. I think Michael Cole dislikes us. And I need to know it. I want to know why. I want to know why Michael Cole hates us so much.
Get him on the phone. Get him on the phone right now. Paul, do your job. Get him on the phone.
Get him on the phone. I want to know why he hates us as much as he does. But Nick, this is another aspect of pro wrestling we love. Again, surprise. Didn't see it coming. And then now we continue on with the feud. And what Bully just said is 100% right. Nobody's saying like another match. Nobody's saying. Now it's like, holy shit, I can't wait to see that next match.
And to say that without a title on the line, without a championship, without some kind of other than the bracelet being involved, there's no like title to win. And much like that match where Drew won that first one and then Punk came in on top, Drew, the story here is they hate the hell out of each other. And almost always in the old days, you'd come in like, oh, one guy won one, the other guy's going to win the other one. And we're going to get to the third one and then we'll see what happens. Like exactly like you guys both just said, everybody goes, yes, it's not over with. So you even, not only did they go about it the opposite way that we're always thinking and say, having Drew saying this ain't over, blah, blah, blah. You go around that and just do two more steps to get us to the exact same match that we already wanted to see. And now we want to see it just a little bit more than we originally did. And then now we know that it's a blood feud, that they're kicking the hell out of each other. Strap match has already been involved. And now you get to speculate, where do they go? Because in this rubber match, this truly does probably finish it. So how do they end the ending of the biggest thing going on, except for the world title match?
And Dave, what I'm about to say, I'm kidding, but I'm kind of not kidding. I want to see Larry bite McIntyre's ankles and AJ kick him in the balls.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do we need to see AJ in this scenario? Maybe we do. Maybe if you really want to get even deeper and get even more personal, maybe we see the return of AJ Lee to the WWE.
We were talking earlier about the full circle stuff with Josh Alexander and how Josh tried to bully Nick, which is exactly what I did to Josh. And how did I bully Josh back in the day? I dragged his wife over the guardrail and I got what I wanted out of it. I love deep storyline like that where people involved. AJ has not been around in a long time. AJ, a beloved female, beloved wrestler amongst the WWE universe. You bring AJ Lee back into the mix and the emotion will flood into this storyline like you wouldn't believe. It would be the perfect icing on the cake for emotional investment into this whole story. What do you think, Nick?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, I don't want to get into what match we're going to until it's time for us to talk about that. But the first thing that popped into my head was one of these two matches and involving AJ. And it doesn't even have to be the buildup because of the idea of that you don't have this physical title or championship. You have this bracelet and everyone says a 50 cent that you said is worth 50 cents, but it's much more meaningful in our business, especially when it's bigger than championships. When you go family stuff, everybody goes, ooh. And when you get into that extra special, this is very serious business. That's the first thing I was thinking of. I was like, how do you get the dog here? I'm like, AJ would be great. And we don't need a run in. We don't need her hitting a Hurricane Rana. We just need her as all you do need. Just one little piece is her supporting her husband or being there. You can get to wrestling and all that other bullshit later. This is beyond that at the moment. And I would love to have, again, without going into the match that I would like to see, that's where she gets presented. And that's where you go, finally, Punk, who doesn't have anyone in his corner allegedly, and is the underdog because McIntyre is such a bastard and huge and jacked, that now you have one more piece that now all of a sudden Punk cares that much more. The bracelet's been broken, shoved in his face. He's been jumped again. Even with that win, again, like Bubba said, who cares who won those two matches? Let's continue seeing the real life story of these people and delving farther into their characters. And of course, if you're going to keep mentioning someone's wife, you should have the wife at some point for a payoff.
Dave.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yes.
McIntyre's looking for Punk. He can't find him. Finds Punk's dressing room. Decides to walk in. Punk's not there. But Larry is. Drew walks in, closes the door behind him. And just by Nick's laugh alone, I know I'm onto something. Right? That's all you need. Drew's alone with Larry. Oh, my God. Is he going to treat him like Mr. Fuji treated somebody's dog back in the day? Is he going to make stew out of Larry?
And you listen, you know this, Bully. A lot of people care more about the pet than they do actual human beings. Believe me, I live with somebody who feels that way as well. So you know what they actually should do? They should have Drew home invasion and then stalk oh no, wait, that would make him a baby face. But there are
four in the mix, four John Wick movies purely based on someone's dog getting taken, and we know what we're laughing at already. But
you know what they actually
people
did
care
here?
So much more about their dogs
Yes, I agree. I believe me. There's a lot of animals I prefer over people. That's 100%.
Yes.
But you know what they've done, which is unbelievable, is they've made CM Punk sympathetic. Think about that. I mean, here's 2 weeks ago, we did a show, Bully, where people's perception is Punk a cancer? Is what Punk is able to do sometimes with his attitude. And now look at after last night, they made him a sympathetic figure. When has CM Punk ever been the sympathetic figure on your TV?
I don't even know if you can go back to Ring of Honor days and say that Punk was a sympathetic babyface. But yes, it's true. You feel bad for the guy, and it's because of a 50-cent bracelet that means something to him. We haven't seen from his wife. We haven't seen from his dog. All we know is that he likes to wear his wife and his dog's name around his wrist on that bracelet. And now that's been destroyed, shoved down his throat. Just when you thought there was no place left to go in this story, there's actually more places to go in this story than they have had in the past.
And Nick, you have to be able to go to that next level. Bully and I have talked so many times over the years, like, all right, they're here, but you know what? If they go here, they go to this next level. Imagine what I can't see the WWE doing that, but boy, imagine what would happen if you went to this next level. What we're seeing is them going to that next level. We're seeing things that we don't normally see. Something as simple as blood. That's something for years and years we did not see in the WWE, but we've seen it in this story. Can they go there? Can the WWE go there? The answer is yes, Nick. They can go to that next level.
They can. And again, we have almost like handcuffed ourselves to this certain reality of the wrestling world, or how Raw is going to be, or what the rules are, or what as far as they can go. And knowing that even just with this story so far, there's more pieces and they've gone about it a different way, and to take us out of the comfort zone. So I really think they can go to that next level, and they possibly will. If it's Vince and 10 years ago, and you're in there going, I would like to do this, and we're gonna hang his dog up in the air, and he's like, we can't do any of that stuff. No, absolutely not. Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna roll him up with the tights, and you're like, oh, okay. So like, you get to a point to where you're past championships, you're past the personal issue, you're on to another level. There is a legitimate chance this can go to a bigger and more realistic, legitimate suspense thriller movie with people and animals on the line.
But Bully's laughing. I'm a little afraid going to Bully right now because he's got that look on his head. I'm almost afraid, but go ahead, Bully.
It's listening to Nick describe going into Vince's office with this great idea that is going to work, that you're willing to bet your contract on, your home on. It's the greatest idea, and he just goes, I think you're just gonna roll him up, pal. And you walk
with the tights. And you're like,
you're gonna hug that, and you just walk out of there.
They're gonna boo you out of the building.
So deflated.
Yeah.
I remember Matt Bloom, who's doing a phenomenal job down in NXT. I remember him standing outside of Vince's office one day, and the steam is coming out of his ears. Matt Bloom is 6'5", 350 pounds. He's got more steel running through him from all his piercing. He is a big, bad mother trucker. And I'm like, brother, what are you doing? He's like, I got to talk to him. I'm going in there, and I'm fucking, Bubba, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this. He came out of Vince's office, and I said, how did it go? And he said, I'm the hip-hop hippo. And I went, what?
Oh,
he goes, yeah,
no.
I'm the hip-hop hippo now.
Oh,
There's
man.
a portion of Matt Bloom's career where his character was the hip-hop hippo.
Yeah.
That's what it's like to go into Vince's office sometimes and just come out like you just went through the Twilight Zone. So that little piece that Nick just gave us, like I had like PTSD, like complete flashbacks.
And the real part is you go in there to pitch this like serial killer piece to your story, and you end up regressing to an even more tamer version of the match because he got to think about it for a second more, and you go, oh no, and you come out as the hip hop hippo or something like that. That is heartbreaking. My God. But you have one there, like you're just trying to make one little more piece that'll make it stand out. It's so different, and it goes above and beyond. I'm gonna cut a piece of his ear off and walk on there, and it's gonna be shit. I'm gonna walk around with it on a necklace. Everyone's gonna lose their mind. And he goes, and you just get talked down and just like, how about if you poke him in the eye before you pin him? And you're like, it's kind of the same. Like, yeah, okay, it's kind of the same. But like, not that that's not as like he had millions of ideas. Just I wasn't, you're not on top, so I shouldn't be cutting Kofi's ear off in our middle of the card match. But you do have these crazy ideas, and then instead of just having like this cool match where we have a finish, we now have a thumb to the eye that we have to force in for Kofi, the good guy. There's something interesting, and it's just like you walk out of there not just defeated, not just tricked and turned back around, but you're 1% back farther away behind the 8 ball than you were originally.
But Nick and Bully, it is a fine line, and they made the story about this bracelet because hey, CM Punk doesn't show that side of himself very often. We know he's married, and we know that he has this dog that he loves, and both those names are on that bracelet that a fan gave him. He expressed it, and to see a little bit of emotion from Punk is extremely rare. So we know how much that bracelet means. To your point, like in the Vince McMahon era, I'll use an example: the Dean Ambrose Chris Jericho feud, where it was about a plant. But the plant, there was nothing about that plant. It became a gimmick. It became like a fun thing that fans would chant. So, yeah, they're more interested in this potted plant than they are about Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho, the match that they're having, or the story. Because now it's just about a gimmick plant, and it's a goof. It's very easy to fall into that like goof area as opposed to it being an object that has a lot of emotion behind it, which is what we're seeing with CM Punk in Drew McIntyre. But I can see I feel bad because I think a lot of people who are listening can relate to having a boss that's just fucking clueless at times, where the direction of where you want to go as an employee, and they look at it completely different, and it doesn't do for you anything for you personally. So I think our fans can actually relate to some of the stories that you're telling.